Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
Hi, Lip. Thanks for having me.
Today we're taking a look at Asian Paints and their Q2 FY25 results.
Yeah, and there's some pretty interesting stuff in here.
It looks like they saw a dip in revenue this quarter.
Yeah, that's right. Consolidated net sales decreased by 5.3% to 8,003.0 crores.
And standalone net sales decreased even more. They were down 6.5%.
Yeah, to 6,840.6 crores. So a little bit less money coming in than the same time last year.
So is this like a big red flag?
Not necessarily. I mean, when you look at what's going on in India right now, it kind of makes sense.
What do you mean?
Well, the economy's been a little shaky. People aren't feeling so confident about their money.
Yeah.
And when that happens, people tend to put off those bigger purchases like, home improvements.
Makes sense.
And then you've got those crazy monsoon rains and floods.
Oh, right, yeah. Those were intense.
Yeah, definitely threw a wrench in things impacted manufacturing and consumer behavior.
So it's like a combo of cautious spenders and unpredictable weather. But okay, even with all that, Asian Paint's decorative business in India has still been growing.
That's right. They've seen like a 10.1% compounded growth rate over the past 5 years.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. But even within that success story, there's a little bit of a slowdown this quarter.
What do you mean?
Well, if you look closely, their decorative volume actually declined by 0.5%.
Huh. So even giants like Asian Paints feel the pinch when the economy wobbles.
Exactly. It's all connected.
So where does that leave Asian Paints and, their investors?
Well, they did implement some price increases during Q2.
Oh, right.
And the full impact of those should hit in the second half of the fiscal year.
So a little bit of a waiting game.
Kind of like adjusting to the new normal,
Makes sense.
But
But Asian Paints isn't just about the decorative market. They've also got their industrial coatings and home decor businesses.
yeah, good point. That's where we see some interesting differences.
Like what?
Well, their industrial business is doing really well, especially segments like protective coatings and refinishing.
So while people might hold back on painting their homes, industries like infrastructure keep chugging along.
Exactly. Different parts of the economy react differently to a downturn.
Now, home decor, that's a mixed bag, right?
Yeah, it is. It's growing overall thanks to their beautiful homes stores network, but it's not performing as well as they'd hoped.
So what are they doing about that?
Well, they made a strategic decision.
Okay.
They took what's called an impairment loss on investments in white teak and weather seal.
Impairment loss.
Basically, they're saying those particular bets haven't worked out as well as they thought.
So they're adjusting their books to reflect that.
Exactly. Got to stay agile.
It takes guts to admit when something's not working.
Yeah. But it's essential for long-term health.
Speaking of growth, can't forget about Asian Paint's international business.
Right. They're a global player.
So how are things looking on that front?
Well, their international revenue actually dipped a bit.
No.
But here's the thing. If you factor in currency fluctuations, which can be crazy in international business, there was actually a growth of 8.7%.
Wow. So it's all about perspective.
Exactly. Those currency swings can really distort the picture.
But I'm sure they're facing some challenges in those overseas markets.
Oh, definitely. Some regions have been tougher than others, like Ethiopia and Bangladesh.
Ew.
They've been dealing with currency devaluations, political instability, and even floods.
So even a giant like Asian Paints can't escape those global economic tremors.
Nope, it's a constant balancing act.
Well, let's talk about profitability, because at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Absolutely, and that's where things get a bit more interesting.
How so?
Well, remember how we talked about Asian Paints having a diversified portfolio, like different ingredients in a recipe?
Yeah.
Well, the profitability of each of those ingredients can fluctuate.
And this quarter,
Their profitability took a bit of a hit.
what do you mean by that?
Well, we often look at what's called the PBDIT margin.
PBDIT margin.
It basically tells you how much profit they're making on their core operations before taking out certain expenses.
Oh.
So their consolidated PBDIT margin landed at 15.5%,
Okay.
which is down 480 basis points from Q2 last year.
And their standalone PBDIT margin.
Even lower, 16.4%, down 530 basis points.
So just to clarify, a basis point is like a tiny fraction of a percent, right?
Exactly. It's 1/100%. So 530 basis points means their margin shrank by a little over 5%.
So their profit margin is thinner than it used to be.
Yeah, basically.
What's causing this?
A few things, actually. Those price reductions from last year are still having an impact.
Right.
Plus, the cost of raw materials has been going up.
So it's like they're getting squeezed from both sides.
Yeah, kinda. And then on top of that, they've had to spend more on sales and marketing.
So not exactly a recipe for soaring profits.
Not this quarter, but there are some reasons to be optimistic.
Like what?
Well, analysts are predicting that those material prices will start to come down in the coming quarters.
So that's good.
Yeah, and those price increases they implemented should start having a bigger impact.
So hopefully their margins will recover.
Fingers crossed.
But beyond just the pure financials, there's this growing focus on sustainability these days.
Absolutely. It's not just about profits anymore. It's about doing business responsibly.
Right. So what's Asian Paints doing in that area?
They're actually making some pretty impressive efforts.
Oh, yeah.
They've got some specific sustainability goals outlined in their investor presentation.
Okay.
For example, they've already achieved a 3.9 times replenishment rate for fresh water.
Wow. So they're giving back more than they're taking.
Exactly. And they're aiming to significantly ramp up their use of renewable energy.
How much?
They're targeting 75% by FY25 and 100% by FY2030.
Those are some ambitious goals.
Yeah, they're serious about this.
What about their impact on people and communities?
Well, they have this great project called the Asian Paints St. Plus Art Frontier.
Okay, what's that?
It focuses on using art to honor the Indian Armed Forces. They've even unveiled some incredible murals in Tawang as part of this project.
Wow, that's amazing. So they're using their resources to make a positive impact.
Exactly. It's about more than just paint and profits.
But I'm curious, how do you think these sustainability and community initiatives impact their bottom line?
It's hard to measure the direct financial impact, but think about it. In today's world, consumers are drawn to brands that align with their values.
I mean, I know I am.
Right. So when you see a company like Asian Paints taking these steps towards sustainability and giving back, it builds trust and goodwill.
And that can lead to stronger financial performance in the long run.
Exactly. It's about building a sustainable business for the future.
It's a fascinating approach, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for them.
Definitely something to watch.
So we've got this slowdown in their core business, but they're making strategic moves, adapting to challenges, and showing a real commitment to sustainability.
It's a dynamic situation.
It is, and it raises some big questions like, can they successfully navigate these choppy waters?
Yeah.
And will their commitment to sustainability actually give them a competitive edge?
It's a lot to think about.
It is, and those are exactly the kind of questions we'll be tackling in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to.
We'll be diving deeper into the numbers, exploring what the experts are saying, and analyzing Asian Paint's prospects for the future.
Stay tuned. Okay, so let's dig into some of those key numbers from Asian Paint's financials.
Yeah, let's see how those trends we talked about are actually showing up.
Well, we already mentioned that their consolidated net sales dipped to 8,003.0 crores.
Right, a 5.3% decrease.
And standalone net sales, which is basically their core business in India,
Yeah.
those are down 6.5% to 6,840.6 crores.
So those sluggish sales are probably coming from that slowdown in their decorative business, right?
Exactly. That softer demand definitely had an impact along with those price reductions from last year.
Makes sense. What about their profitability?
Well, those shrinking sales have impacted their profitability too. Their consolidated PBDIT margin for Q2 FY25 came in at 15.5%.
Okay.
Which is a significant drop of 480 basis points compared to last year.
And their standalone PBDIT margin?
Similar story. 16.4%, down 530 basis points.
So just to remind myself, a basis point is 1/100%, right?
Yep, you got it. So 530 basis points means their margin shrank by a little over 5%.
That's a pretty big change.
It is. It means they're making about 5 less profit for every 100 of revenue from their core operations.
So what's causing this margin squeeze? Is it just the lower sales?
It's a combination of factors, actually. Those price reductions are still having an effect.
Right.
Plus, the cost of raw materials has been going up, impacting the whole industry.
Like the price of lemons going up for your lemonade stand.
Exactly. Higher input costs mean lower profit margins.
And then they also increase their spending on sales and marketing.
Right. All of that contributes to the squeeze, but they are taking steps to counter these challenges.
Like what?
Well, those price increases we talked about, the full impact of those should be felt later in the year.
So hopefully some relief is on the way. Now, what about those strategic decisions, specifically that impairment loss on their investments in white teak and weather seal?
Right. So remember how we talked about Asian Paints having a diversified portfolio?
Yeah, like different ingredients in a recipe?
Exactly. And sometimes those investments don't pan out the way you hoped.
It happens.
It does. And that's what they're acknowledging with this impairment loss. Those investments in white teak and weather seal haven't performed as well as they expected.
So they're adjusting their books accordingly.
Exactly. Transparency is important. They need to accurately represent their financial position to investors.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're being upfront about the challenges.
Exactly. And that honesty can actually be a good thing for investors.
It builds trust.
It does. It shows they're willing to make tough decisions for the long-term health of the company.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about their international operations. We saw that marginal decline in revenue, but a growth of 8.7% in constant currency terms.
Right. So currency fluctuations can really complicate things for global companies.
Yeah, it's like comparing apples and oranges sometimes.
Exactly. So looking at growth in constant currency terms eliminates that currency impact and gives you a clearer picture.
So their international business is actually doing pretty well, despite those challenges in certain regions.
That's right. They're navigating a complex global market.
Now let's bring it back to sustainability. We talked about their specific targets, but why is this such a big focus for companies like Asian Paints these days?
It's not just a trend. There are solid business reasons for this focus.
Okay.
For one thing, consumers are becoming more conscious about the environmental and social impact of the products they buy.
Makes sense?
They want to support brands that align with their values.
Right. It's like voting with your wallet.
Exactly. And investors are also factoring sustainability into their decisions.
They're looking for companies that are managing those ESG risks and opportunities.
That's right. So it's not just about doing good, it's also about doing well financially.
So companies that prioritize sustainability might actually be more resilient in the long run?
Potentially, yes. And Asian Paints is definitely taking concrete steps in this direction.
And their community engagement efforts, like the Asian Paints St. Plus Art Frontier project, just enhance their reputation.
Exactly. It's about building a sustainable business for the future, one that benefits everyone.
So it's more than just paint. It's about a bigger purpose.
It is, and that leads to an interesting question. Could these initiatives actually give Asian Paints a competitive advantage?
That's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our analysis.
We'll look at what the experts are saying and analyze their future prospects.
It's all about getting the full picture.
Exactly. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've gone deep into the numbers, the strategies, the global picture, even sustainability.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
But now let's hear what the market thinks. What are the analysts saying about Asian Paint's performance and their future?
Well, the overall feeling seems to be cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, they recognize the challenges, the economic slowdown, the rising input costs, those currency fluctuations.
Right, but they're not panicking.
No, they seem to think Asian Paints is strong enough to handle it.
So what's making them so confident?
Well, Asian Paints has some serious advantages. First, their brand presence in India is huge, and their distribution network is super solid.
They've got a strong foundation.
Exactly. And second, they've proven they can adapt and innovate.
Like with those tough decisions we talked about.
Yeah, the impairment loss, the price increases, it shows they're not afraid to make changes.
So they're staying flexible.
Exactly. Now remember those rising input costs squeezing their margins?
Yeah, that was a concern.
Well, analysts are predicting those material prices will start to ease up in the coming quarters.
That was good news.
Yeah, it should give their margins some breathing room.
So they've got internal strength, strategic flexibility, and potentially some relief from external pressures.
Sounds like a recipe for resilience.
It does. But what about the long-term growth prospects? Are analysts feeling good about that?
Oh yeah, the long-term outlook for the Indian paint industry is very positive.
Why that?
Well, you've got rising urbanization, infrastructure development, increasing disposable incomes, all pointing towards growth.
And Asian Paints is in the perfect position to take advantage of that.
Exactly. They're the market leader.
And they're not just focused on India, right?
Mm.
What about their international ambitions?
Analysts are keeping a close eye on that, while some markets are definitely challenging.
Like Ethiopia and Bangladesh.
Yeah, but their overall growth in constant currency terms shows they're making progress globally.
So multiple pathways to growth.
Exactly. And don't forget their expansion into things like home decor and industrial coatings that adds even more opportunities.
So what's the big takeaway here for someone trying to understand Asian Paints and their future?
I'd say Asian Paints is a company on the move, constantly adapting to a complex world.
And not standing still.
Nope, they're making tough decisions, investing in new areas, and they're committed to sustainability and community engagement.
It's a pretty impressive story.
It is a story of resilience, adaptability, and a focus on creating value for everyone involved.
Well said. It's been fascinating unpacking all of this with you.
I've enjoyed it.
And to our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of Asian Paints.
Their performance, their strategies, their place in the world.
We encourage you to keep exploring, Keep asking questions and keep digging deeper.
That's how we all learn and grow.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.